Frequently asked question number 25. Is it okay to trim your succulent roots? Now guys, you need to understand why exactly do you want to trim your succulent roots. A lot of times succulent roots are not very huge. As you can see, this is an example. This is how usually the succulent roots are of any succulent depending upon the size. This is a medium sized succulent and you can see the roots are not very huge. Now if you have roots like this, it's rarely necessary to trim the roots, but let's say that if you have some issues or if the roots are starting to turn darker in color, now this is just an experiment, you do not have to do it. Let's say that this part of the roots are turning black in color and they're rotting, so you can just take your scissor and just chop them off like this, and that's about it. In case if your roots are getting damaged or if they're turning black because of overwatering or whatever reasons, but ideally it's not necessary to trim the roots. Now at times what I tend to do is when I tend to get succulents in postage, I tend to see, because they come bare rooted, and at times I see that there is some growing media on the succulent roots that I'm not very sure what exactly it is. So at that point of time what I do is I cut them off like the same way, but I do not cut off all the roots. I still leave a good amount of roots. This is when I get my succulents online. But ideally cutting or trimming of the roots is extremely not necessary unless they are starting to rot, is only the time that you want to trim them off or you want to cut them off. Now over here this was just an example to show you where you can cut in case if they start to rot. Now over here my succulent is doing absolutely well. The roots are also healthy. Now the portion where we have cut these roots, very soon they will start growing new roots. Within couple of weeks they will start putting out new roots. But as you can see, I haven't cut off the entire portion of the roots. I have still left a lot of the roots like that. So in case if you notice that the roots are getting rotted, as per what kind of rot it is it complete, is it partial, according to that you will have to trim off the roots. Now I don't have any succulent that is having a root rot, so touch wood, I hope that never happens to anyone, but yeah, root rot can be quite dangerous. So when you tend to see that there is any kind of root rot, or if you tend to see that the roots are turning darker in color, they're turning mushy, so it's always better to cut them off. But otherwise it's not necessary to cut or to trim the roots. You can just put them as it is. So that's all about it. Please don't be worried. A lot of times the roots will not even be that long that you have to trim them. Usually the succulent roots, they tend to sit either in the mid level or in the upper level of the soil. They do not run too deep into the soil unless the plant has been in that pot for a very long time. Let's say for 2 or 3 years, if the succulent has been in the same pot, then yes, probably you might see a huge amount of roots. But other than that, regularly within a year or within a year and a half, you will not have that huge growth of roots on your succulents. They are usually very tiny. As you can see, this succulent was roughly around a year, I think. So you can see the roots were not that long. So ideally it's not necessary that you have to trim the roots, only in case if there is an infection, or let's say that there are too much of mealybugs attached onto the roots, then you can just trim them off a little bit, but try to leave as much as healthy roots as possible so that can continue the succulent to grow. But in case if you see that your succulent is getting dehydrated and there is some problem with the roots, then you will have to cut off that infected part of the root. Do not keep that, because if the roots are rotting, they will transfer that rot onto the stem, and then from the stem it will continue up to the crown area. Once the rot has reached the crown area, you cannot do anything for the succulent. The succulent is completely gone. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button, and thank you so much for watching.